let you go, there's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close, now baby. I do what I'm told, still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing. You're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice. Act like you surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, 'cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you close to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. Cooler than cold, I'm all in. So load up the dice, so heavy. The way that you roll, I'm falling. So I never fall, I'm ready to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing. You're my lucky strike, yeah. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice, yeah. Act like you surprised, but you already know. You're my lucky strike, and I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. I can't let you go, there's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close, now baby. I do what I'm told, still learning to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing. You're my lucky strike. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice. Act like you surprised, but you already know. Oh yeah, got lucky overnight. Jackpot when I got the invite. Let me wrap my arms around you, 'cause I can't go home without you. And my heart just vibe with you, babe. Wanna go sky high with you, babe. Gotta bring you close to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. Cooler than cold, I'm all in. So load up the dice, so heavy. The way that you roll, I'm falling. So I never fall, I'm ready to take my chances, to take my time, to keep on dancing, to walk that line, yeah. You got me shifting the paradigm, no longer wishing. You're my lucky strike, yeah. Love the way you ride. Look into my eyes, say you're ready to go. $1,000,000 life, yeah. We could roll the dice, yeah. Act like you surprised, but you already know. You're my lucky strike, and I got to tell you, if you didn't know, then I got to tell you that you're my lucky strike. And I try. I can't let you go, there's no way. I'm already still burning. So hold me close, now baby, I do what I.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RecPoker podcast. This is another one of those odd weeks. We were really looking forward to talking to Matt Affleck live on the show tonight, but that son of a gun is going deep in a day two. And he very rightfully said, you know what, I'm not going to be able to make it live. So we're going to do an interview over the next couple of days with Matt offline. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with our audience. If you're here in the YouTube chat right now live, thanks for showing up. You will have to wait, unfortunately, until Friday to hear the interview with Matt. But I'll tell you now, if you have any questions that you'd like me to ask Matt Affleck, he's a fantastic player, poker player and coach. We've got some fun stuff coming up, and I think you'll enjoy that. But if you have any questions that you'd like me to ask Matt in the interview, feel free to just type them in the YouTube chat here, and I'll write them down and record them and make sure that we ask Matt when the time comes. So what we're going to do is, typically on a night like this where the guest can't make it live, we're still going to record the intro and the outro. We're still going to talk about some home game winners. We're still going to give away a prize to support a local food bank. That's all going to happen like usual. But we just don't have the interview with Matt, unfortunately. So to make it up to you, our listeners, our live YouTube viewers, we're also just going to record a forums episode where we talk a little bit about strategy instead, just so you're not totally wasting your time hanging out with us here on Monday night. So we'll take you behind the curtain a little bit and just kind of show you how some of the production stuff happens here. Joe Coolis, welcome. We are broadcasting, but we're not recording. We're just about to, Matt Affleck is going deep into day two, so couldn't make it tonight. So we're just going to do the intro, outro like usual. And then Chris has pulled a hand from our Discord or our forums to do a quick strategy segment. How's everyone's audio? Joe, you sound good there, I think.
I do?
Yep.
Okay. No,
Yep.
not like
Loud
a chipmunk?
No chipmunks.
No chipmunks.
No chipmunks
No
coming
chipmunks
right on
this
air
week.
with us. That's good.
Yeah. Mike
If
Day
I came in and did the chipmunk, that might fill some airtime. And
Yeah.
I could do like a-
Well, and I asked everyone on Discord to send us their best Phil punchlines, but nobody's responded yet. So
Oh,
because I was, to fill, we need something to fill the airtime when we don't have a guest. So.
fill in
right,
the airtime with Phil. So
Yeah.
that's all.
yeah,
that matters.
exactly. The Phil. Evil Roy Slade, I see you're in here. Mike Day, welcome. Just stick around. We're gonna we'll do the intro and outro for the main podcast first, and then we'll give away a prize as part of that. So actually, if you're enjoying the show now, just start typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat. And oh yeah, why don't we make one of us do Steak Study Stack? That's a good idea. Chris, why don't you pull 3 names for Joe, which we can do. We can do like you've got a few minutes. We'll do it.
Okay.
We'll do it at the end of the like just Wrecking Crew members maybe or podcast. So I know he's a big thinking.
I got
fan.
an idea.
Okay, perfect. And good call, Mike Day. Thanks for shouting that out. That is a fun idea. And I see the RRCCC is already getting the first food bank raffle in there. So I think that sounds like a good plan. All right. So why don't we dive right in? We'll do the chat's intro. We'll talk about how excited we are for Matt Affleck to be joining the Wrecking Group. We'll do the outro, give away a prize, and then we'll dive right back in and do a strategy session to keep it fun here on the RecPoker podcast on Monday night. So you guys know what you're doing. I am going to already sharing audio, so I can't screw that up. What can I screw up, folks? Let's find out. Let's find out together here.
Don't say that out loud.
No. All right, here we go. Let's get this all set up. I think we're all set. All right. This is how the sausage is made. Is the cookie behind? Behind the curtain is how the sausage is made. There you go. All right. Yeah.
Mixing metaphors.
I'm gonna roll in. Yeah, let's start. Oh no, that didn't work. Hold on. Okay. Now we're gonna start. All right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. This is the Chats edition, but we also have a Forums edition every week, just talking strategy. Now, I'm your host, Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game, and at Rec Poker Jim on the hellscape that we call Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends here on the podcast every Monday night at 7:30 Eastern, live on YouTube. You can join us for free every week, and you can win a prize just for showing up. Now, we're going to be talking to Matt Affleck in just a moment. But first, I have to mention that we're brought to you by Running Aces, the official sponsor of the Rec Poker Podcast. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we really depend on support from our sponsors and also from our premium members who take part in our training material and study opportunities for only $22 a month. And it really makes a big difference for us. Every premium member that joins is a big deal. And I just love being able to share our love of poker with so many fantastic supporters. So you can join for free, of course. Please get involved at Rec Poker. All it takes to get a free community account is an email address and a smile, although we do insist on both. But you can get your first month of premium membership for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. So I encourage you to do that. And I'll also just remind you that if $5 sounds like a lot of money, I fully get that. Everyone here wants Rec Poker to be accessible to everyone. So we will always credit you a free month of premium membership if you just make a donation to a local food bank in your area for any amount and just send us the receipt, and we'll make sure that you get credited with a free month. So thanks for your support at Rec Poker, and thanks for supporting a local food bank as well. Now, they let me host the show on Mondays, but I'm only one man. It takes a group, a gang, a crew to make all the magic happen around here. We call this group of wizards the Wrecking Crew, and if you want to learn more about me or the rest of the Wrecking Crew, just go to rec.poker/crew, or you can listen up because you're going to meet a few of them right here tonight on the show, starting with producing co-host Chris Jones.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the PokerStars home game.
And I am Joe Coolis. You can find me at Joe Cool PhD, cool with a K, on Twitter, or Elvita11 in the home game. And I serve as the maven of all things psychological at Rec Poker. And every third Thursday of the month, we try to have some discussions about different ways that your brain processes information and how that may help you on the poker field.
And Chris Jones also runs our deep dive strategy segment every month. He's a big mover and shaker. And basically, if it comes down to membership, content, and strategy, he's the guy to talk to around here. And he also produces the show. How about that? So we actually had very exciting news. So a lot of you already know who Matt Affleck is. He's a fantastic player and coach. He's one of the top coaches at pokercoaching.com. He's been on the show a few times. He's a friend of the show, great guy. And he wants to get more involved. He's been getting more and more excited about Rec Poker and the great work we do. So he's joining the Wrecking Crew. Pretty soon you're going to have Matt Affleck's smiling face up on that Meet the Crew page that hopefully some of you just went and checked out. Matt's got some great ideas for how he can start bringing some of his knowledge and wisdom and experience as a player and coach to our membership at Rec Poker. It's all actually kicking off in the month of February. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, that's a Friday. The very next week, on Wednesday, October 9th, our premium members will be able to join us for Matt's first webinar at Rec Poker. That's going to be at 6:30 Eastern. So 3:30 Pacific. That might be tough for some of our West Coasters to check out live, but of course we will be saving the recording of that as well, so you can always watch the video afterwards. And then we have another one of Matt's webinars this month on Wednesday, October 23rd at 7:30 Eastern, so just an hour later in our usual kind of 7:30 slot. And I am really excited to be working with Matt on all sorts of cool stuff. He's got such a great poker mind. He's an excellent coach and a really fun guy as well. I'm also doing a cool coaching project with Matt that I guess I'll just spill here without him because he's not going to be live for the show. But Matt is actually taking me under his wing for the next 10 or 12 weeks, and I'll be getting some coaching from him directly, leading up to what I hope is a very fun and exciting trip to Las Vegas and the fantastic, beautiful Wynn Casino for the World Poker Tour Series, which will be running there in December later this year. I went down last December, had a fantastic time, played in the Prime and a bunch of other events. December is a much nicer time to be in Las Vegas than June and July. I'm sure no one will disagree with that. But yeah, I'm going to try and take a shot at some of the bigger events there, I think, for this series. And I'm really excited to be working with Matt. And we're going to be sharing a lot of that coaching program with our members as well. Some of that will be available via video, and some of that will be actually streamed live on several platforms. So stay tuned, folks. Over the next few months, we'll be releasing some details over the next few weeks. Make sure you're signed up for the RecPoker newsletter. Stay actively involved with our social media handles. Well, that's where we'll be putting out a lot of the details about this to come. But do check it out. It won't be just for RecPoker Premium members either. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff to share with everyone here at RecPoker Nation. So,
and can I just add one quick thing to this?
Please.
Everyone, mark these dates on your calendar because, like, he is an elite poker mind, but not just as a skill. I think as a teacher too. He's just like got such a knack. His content is so good, and if you're like a player who wants to get better and wants to learn aspects of the game, we're so lucky to have somebody like that kind of working with us and helping. He's the perfect fit for recreational players that want to get better. So I just really encourage you to like mark these on your calendar, tune in for these coaching sessions, come to the sessions he's giving, because this is a phenomenal resource, and he's one of those bright lights in the poker world that I think we all should be paying some attention to.
I just want to follow up too. What Chris is saying is that one of the reasons I'm here today is because I've been interested in some of the discussions we've had in previous conversations with him about how he approaches teaching and he thinks about it. And for me, as somebody who has students who you have to think about, well, how am I going to approach this individual? How am I going to make this particular concept accessible to an individual? You can't just throw one thing at the wall and make it stick. You have to bring it into a manner in which they can accept it. He does a good job of that. And I've been impressed with the way he's talked about his coaching approach.
Great, and we've already got some comments in the YouTube chat. One from Hubert saying he does have his way to connect the concepts. Mike Day saying, ask Matt about what he does to prepare himself the day of a big MTT. So I will make a note to do that. And I thought I saw another. Oh yeah, Evil Roy Slade saying he's not going to miss it. That sounds like good content. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for that and to be able to work with Matt and to bring him into to the Wrecking Crew and to share all that greatness with our members. All right. So I'll just say again, so that the Rec Poker webinars he's going to be doing October 9th at 6:30 Eastern and October 23rd at 7:30 Eastern. And I'm really looking forward to that. I think you guys should tune in. And again, if you're listening to this and you're not a RecPoker Premium member, drop $5 in the month of October. Give us a try. Give our premium membership a try for $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. And you will get a chance to watch both these webinars with Matt, get involved in all of our interactive Zoom study sessions, watch all our training videos, for $5. You're going to have a great month. I hope you don't have too much on the go. But seriously, it's a good month to try us out for $5 and see all the cool stuff we have going. All right. Well, then,
and as Jim said before, $5 to the food bank, and you get to give some food, and we'll help you out. You can try us out and see if maybe you can, I don't want to say kill two birds with one stone because we don't want to kill anybody, but really move forward on a couple of different fronts.
Yeah, that's a great point. And like, if you're considering giving us your first $5 to give us a try, like Joe says, nothing would make us happier than for you to slide that $5 bill over to a local food bank to help support their fight against food insecurity, and just let us know and we'll take care of you there. Chris, you got a smile on your face. What are you?
Oh, I heard like the new thing we're supposed to be saying is feed two birds with one scone.
I like that. Feed two birds with one scone. Okay. Yeah. With your British heritage, that doesn't surprise me that you're at the tip of the spear when it comes to scone-based aphorisms.
Right.
Am I even? Yeah. Okay. All right. We're pulling up. Let's get out of here, gang. Let's have a fantastic interview with Matt Affleck and see you on the other side. All right. Well, we're back. Another great interview with another fantastic guest. I enjoy these interviews that we haven't done yet. Maybe more than any interviews that I've actually done. Just there's so much available. Like the ceiling's so high on these interviews. It's amazing. Like I really liked his response to Mike Day asking about what he does to prepare himself on the day of a big MTT. So now I really hope that I remember to ask him that question.
Oh, you bet. You put the pressure on now.
Super awkward for Mike and I if I don't. All right. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Matt Affleck. Again, October 9th, 6:30 Eastern. October 23rd, 7:30 Eastern. Come and check out those fantastic sessions and get more involved here. All right. Folks are no doubt typing the words food bank into the YouTube chat because we're going to give away a prize in just a moment. First, John Somsky's a little under the weather today, so I'm going to roll through our home game winners recently, and then we'll wrap this puppy up and mosey on out of here. So on September 23rd, the one and only Eric Romo, you know him better as GF Hawk, longtime member here at RecPoker, won the nightly event, and it's his first of this year. Okay, I'm going to wait for John to get back so he can decipher how many he's won in each year or month or whatever.
No, I'd like to hear you just struggle with this rather than.
Oh God, yeah, no, it's his first nightly event win of this year, and he has 28 in total. So I think congratulations, Eric Romo. On the 24th, Aces 54320. That's Kathy Chang won the nightly tournament. That's her fifth total this year of 28 lifetime. That's what this means. Is that what this means? Yeah, that's no. We're waiting for John. I'll say who the winners are, but this is going to be really painfully awkward if I try and decipher the rest of this. Bruce Kiefer, congratulations. Bruce K54 was the winner on the 25th. On September 26th, oh my God, Kathy Chang is back. Aces 54320. And then on the 27th, another Kathy Chang sighting. That's 3 victories in a week, and those are all nightly events. So congratulations to Kathy. Good Lord, that's impressive. That might be the first triple win in a week. I don't know. We'll get the historians on this, but that's pretty close,
amazing. That's very impressive.
Yeah. On the 28th, none other than George Borden, you know him as Larson's Opening, claimed the crown of the nightly event. And we had only one mixed event this week, or it was the mixed practice game on September 25th. Stuart Carriage, Stewie 13, took that one home to bring him to 48 lifetime RecPoker home game wins. Very impressive, really knocking on that door of the 50 lifetime achievement. Rick the Good Dog, you'll love to see that. His name's private, so I won't dox him, but his name's Rick. He's a friendly guy, and he lives in the beautiful state of Minnesota. Ha! He picked up the
What's his
international
address?
Yeah. What's his home security system alarm code? No, you'll have to talk to Rick the Good Dog to find that out. But I believe he's also Rick the Good Dog on Twitter, and I'd encourage you to follow him there. He's a fun character there as well. That was international morning event. The international afternoon event winner was Killy19341, Rich Deacons. Congratulations, Rich. You keep up your he's been one of the regulars in Rob's book study, so it's nice to see that showing up, paying off. And then Roadstar33 won the Learn Pro Poker Sunday event, so he can email info@rec.poker to claim your prize. It's Randy. His name is Randy. I'm going to dox him. Randy, congratulations on another great win. And email info@rec.poker and to claim your prize. You've won a free month at Learn Pro Poker, one of our fantastic training partners here. And we are also going to give a free month of access to either RecPoker or one of our other amazing training partners as part of our prize giveaway here. So unless there's anything else to cover, Chris and Joe, would you like to shout
Were we
something
doing
out?
a stake study stack?
Oh yeah, that's right. We're doing a stake study stack. This was suggested by Mike Day in the audience. I love this audience participation. It's great when we get our YouTube chatters involved. We're gonna do, just because we couldn't get Matt on the show live, we're gonna do a sort of like substitute stake study stack. Chris, why don't you take away?
Yeah, and Matt's already done it, so we're gonna ask our own Joe Cool, PhD.
That's it.
And Joe, I'm gonna give you three names. And I have chosen three, and I've just pulled up a website, some names I didn't even know. You probably do, but I will give you some reference if you don't. Three famous psychologists from history.
Oh dear.
And you're gonna have to
boy.
pick. So you have to pick one that you're gonna stake, one that you're gonna study with, and one that you want to just stack at the table. Your three names, and I'll give you a little bit of context in case they're not familiar. I assume they're familiar to you, but probably not to our audience. First one is B.F. Skinner, and this is
Who's that?
B.F. Skinner is one of history's most famous psychologists. He was a staunch advocate for behaviorism, which made him a dominating force in psychology, so much so that he has been described as the most eminent psychologist of the 20th century. So that's your first name. Your second name is Leon Festinger?
Festinger, yeah.
Festinger
Cognitive dissonance.
developed the theories of cognitive dissonance and social comparison to explain the ways in which social conditions influence human behavior. And your third name is William James. William James is a psychologist and philosopher, often referred to as the father of American psychology.
Yeah.
His teaching and writings helped establish psychology as a science. Those are your three names.
Well, all of my discussions are going to bore everybody to death about stake, study, stack. Okay, so Watson. So the one that I would probably end up staking is Watson, because Watson was involved. Well, there's a number of Watsons, but Watson in particular, I believe that one had some influence in terms of advertising. So if I was going to look into who I would want to make money from, it would probably be Watson. The one that I want to study with is Festinger, because Festinger talks most specifically about cognitive biases, and that's always been something that's very interesting to me, particularly. And cognitive dissonance is one that people throw around generally wrongly, and it would be interesting to dig into the details of how. Because whenever we have a concept, particularly for something as broad or as popular as cognitive dissonance, for those of you who don't know cognitive dissonance, and this is the idea that we essentially have to move our thought processes when we have two competing thoughts at the same time, and those are in dissonance. They don't work well together. And so, like, I stole something from a store, but I'm a good person, right? Those are two competing things. And if you've ever stolen something, you may say to yourself, well, the shop owner was a terrible person, so therefore it was okay to steal it, right? And it brings it back into consonance. And so we can make a lot of different changes. So I would absolutely study with Festinger, which leaves Skinner, who was a brilliant man on his own, and I'd probably have to stack him just for the concept of having kids in a box, like the rats that he was, the rats that he put into the box themselves. But that isn't a cut on Skinner, because he really did form a lot of the structure in terms of how we think about training a lot of different areas. So I'm sure the poker committee was just thrilled with my discussion of stake study stack of these eminent psychologists, but that is who I would do.
I love it. Perfect.
But I am glad that you didn't do marry, have fun with, and
right. Well, then I would have just given you Freud, or Freud.
Nice. Well, thank you. Great. That's a fun suggestion, Mike, and thanks, Joe, for being a good sport there. Chris always brings some fun names to the group. All right, let's give away a prize thanks to our YouTube chatters. The reason that we do this, I just want to point out, right now in the world, it's a tough time for a lot of people to make ends meet, and you'd be surprised. some people might just need a little help putting food on the table for themselves or their families, their loved ones, their children. And a great way to make a difference in the world right now that costs you very little, but makes a huge difference to the people that need it is just support your local food bank. So if you've got a smartphone, and I'm sure most of you do, just Google food banks near me, and you'll find an organization in your neighborhood that can benefit from a few dollars from your pocket, a few hours of volunteer time in a week, or maybe it's just some non-perishable food items from your pantry. So I'd encourage you to go and make that difference and go help out a local food bank. We just want to raise some awareness about the fight against food insecurity here on the show. So we always give away a prize at the end of the show to one of the folks who has at least gone so far as to type the words food bank into the YouTube chat. So we've got a few people in here now. I see Chris, to avoid any bamboozling, the RRRCCC, Mike Day, MDWST 1811, and then we'll get Hubie in there fourth with his actual food bank in the right order.
That was a sneaky one because, like,
we're sticklers.
Yeah, okay, sticklers for the rules. So
yeah,
we've got
Joe?
4. Okay.
I just want to say one other quick thing. Given the hurricane that's kind of ripped through the southern part of the states,
great point.
Particularly in Georgia, Tennessee, as well as western North Carolina, many of the places where people are going to be drawing food from are food banks, and they, in preparation for the storm, stocked up, but they are going to be low very quickly on stores. And so if you're considering and you're not certain where your local food bank is, do consider the southern states that have been affected by the hurricane.
Yeah.
Great point, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's a great point.
All right, I see 4 then, Chris. Let's see who our lucky winner is going to be this week.
It's a
We're
4
on the honor system. It's a 4. That's Hubie. All right, so congratulations, Hubie. Hubie's such a fun guy. I met Hubie at a Run Good poker series. We were just playing at the same table. Seemed like a friendly person, so we struck up a conversation. He was involved in some of the 100K crew, that fantastic group that is now a big part of what we're doing here at RecPoker. And it's great to see Hubie continuing to love poker and to go have a good time. Yeah, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Exactly, Hubie. So keep on being you, man, and congratulations on your fantastic prize. So, and if other folks are kind of curious to what this whole prize thing's about, it's real simple. If you're not already a RecPoker Premium member, then every week you can win a whole month of free membership as a premium RecPoker member, just for getting your name drawn in the raffle here. But if you are already a RecPoker Premium member, smart, good thinking, excellent decision-making skills on display so far. One of the perks is you get upgraded to getting a whole different kind of access to one of our learning partners, whether it's Solve for Why, Learn Pro Poker, Jacka Coaching, Redchip, PokerCoaching.com. Oh, God. I got to print out a list of these and just post them in front of me. I'm definitely missing one. This is so embarrassing. We have a number, all the best training sites in the world. You can come and join. They know how important recreational poker players are. That's why they help support RecPoker and make their material available to our premium members. So, send that info, Hubie. Send that email, Hubie, to info@rec.poker and claim your wonderful prize. Oh, boy. Yeah, I think it might be time. Chris, Joe, anything you want to add here, or should we just roll on out here? All right, well, fantastic thanks to Matt Affleck, of course, and the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Find out more about them at runaces.com. Thanks to Joe and Chris here in the booth, all our YouTube chatters. Stick around. We're going to have another episode coming right next. And thanks to everyone at home. Oh, God, get me out of here. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Okay. All right. Oh, sometimes those air drums really take it out of me.
Yeah.
It
Well,
starts.
you're not usually
it starts
still on air right when it when we end it. So usually you get a moment to collect yourself.
Oh yeah, but no, here we are. So okay, YouTube chatters, thanks for sticking around. We're gonna do another episode right now. Just talking more of a strategy-based thing. No interview for this one. This is the forums edition of the podcast. And normally we do these just with our premium members over Zoom, but because we couldn't do the interview with Matt live on the show tonight, we thought it would just be a nice thing to let you all kind of in on this recording of the forums edition. So basically how we do this is we have a pretty awesome website at rec.poker that's free to use and has a lot of fun, fantastic resources for recreational poker players. One of them is our forums. And if you're not a forums person, if you're a little more of an instant chat guy or gal, then I also recommend you check out our Discord, which is also perfectly free and very active and engaged. So when it comes to asking questions about strategy, mindset, the logistics of traveling for poker, how to study, finding resources, there's really so many great reasons to get involved in our free community, and you can get engaged with other thoughtful, serious, fun-loving recreational players just like you in the forums and on Discord. So we'll take a forum post or a Discord post and talk about it here on the show. Chris Jones, why don't you tell us what you've selected just to give us a little heads up, and then we'll start recording the episode.
Oh, we're gonna a little preview here.
Oh well, only if Joe and I need to like have thought about anything in advance. I mean, again, we're pulling back the curtain here. We mostly try and give our listeners our sort of like first glance thoughts on this kind of stuff. We don't pretend to go deep into the lab.
I'm deciding there's too many Chris Jones hands, so I have a hand that I put in the Discord, but I might go back to a Rob Washam one right before that, which is a little bit of a simpler spot, but but I think it's something we could have a good conversation about.
You're not going to test my knowledge of old psychologists that you
find.
No.
All right, so stick around, YouTube chatters. We're about to do the forums edition, and we love questions and input and insights from our chatters while we're doing it. So don't be shy, jump right in, and I hope you enjoy this. So it sounds like Chris, sounds like you're just going to let us wing it, and I'm excited for that. Okay. Here we go. This is yeah. This is kind of how we do it here, gang. Thanks for showing up on YouTube. Please do subscribe. That would mean a lot to us and help us out a lot. And if you're listening at home, I don't know how you got access to this because we're not currently recording. So why don't we just dive in and get this? Let's get this going. All right. Very professional. Very professional. All right, folks. Well, you know you're in for a treat when you hear that tune, because it's time for another week of the RecPoker podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home game, and at RecPoker Jim on the hellscape we call Twitter. And I have the best freaking job in the world, talking poker with my friends here on the Strategy Forums edition of the podcast every Monday night. This week, we're actually recording it live over YouTube, so I hope we'll get some input from our literally multiple live watchers right now. I was going to say scores, dozens, hundreds. I won't give it away, but there's like multiple people right now actively engaged in this. So very excited for that. Maybe we'll hear something from them. I have to mention that we're brought to you by Running Aces, the official sponsor of the RecPoker podcast. They're located less than an hour north of the Twin Cities in the beautiful state of Minnesota. You can find out more about them at runaces.com. Most of what we do here is free. We're a largely volunteer-based organization, so we depend on support from our sponsors and from our premium members who take part in our training material and study opportunities for only $22 a month. And you can always get your first month for only $5 by using the code RecPoker at checkout. But it gets better. You can always just get a free account here. All it takes to sign up for that is an email address and a smile, although we do insist on both. And if $5 feels like a lot to try us out for the first time and $22 feels like a lot every month, I get it. But luckily, we love to support local food banks here. And if you make a donation of any amount to a local food bank and just let us know that you've done that by forwarding us the receipt or the screenshot of the payment or whatever, we will very happily credit you with a free month at RecPoker. So, I'm on a roll, gang. We're doing great. That's why we do these live. Yeah, this is sweet. So yeah, please do support your local food bank, and we'll happily reward that with some free memberships here at RecPoker. All right, now let's get on with the show. They let me host the show on Mondays. I am only one man here at RecPoker. We all are very involved. It's a big group that makes the magic happen around here. That group we call the Wrecking Crew because we have to put the word wreck in everything because we're a bunch of big dorks. If you want to find out more about me and the rest of the Wrecking Crew, you can go to rec.poker/crew, or you can listen up. You're going to meet a few of them tonight, starting with producing co-host Chris Jones.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the Poker Stars home game, and I help run our monthly strategy segment called The Deep Dive.
And my name is Joe Coolis. You can find me at Joe Cool PhD, cool with a K, on Twitter or at Elvita11 in the home game. And I run PsyOps, the workshop that looks into cognitive processes that can help you in your poker game.
All right. So speaking of problems in the poker game, sometimes it's just like, what guys, I don't know what to do. I need feedback. I need help. I want some free resources on how to get better at poker. Well, thanks for tuning in. Future awesome member here at RecPoker. I think we mentioned earlier, a lot of what we do here is free. So come on over to the website at rec.poker, sign up for a free community account with an email address and a smile, and you can use our forums. You can play in our home games. You can get access to our Discord channel. You've got a ton of free videos available to you to help bring your game to the next level. Just a ton of resources. But I'm mentioning the forums and Discord specifically because that's where we go to take posts that we think are interesting enough to mention on the air here on the forums edition of the podcast. So, Chris Jones, you have selected one. Tell us a little bit about what we are in store for today.
Yeah. So this is from our own. This is from Discord. It's from our own Rob Washam, and I think it's a really interesting spot because I think it's the kind of thing that happens quite a bit to people. It might seem sort of like maybe less complicated. We don't get that deep into this hand, but I think it's an interesting spot, and it's one that I think we will, especially against more recreational, less experienced players, I think we'll see this kind of thing happen a decent amount. And so away we go. This is the second level of a live tournament at the Orleans in Vegas. It's a $150 buy-in with a $50 bounty, and there's 8K guaranteed. So this is not one of those progressive bounties, but there's a bounty on each player when we knock them out. And we're very early in the tournament. So the blinds are 200, 300, 300. And our hero is Rob. He's the effective stack with around 30K. So around 100 big blinds. The villain opens from the hijack to 900. So 3 big blinds. And it folds to Rob in the small blind, holding ace jack offsuit. So let's should I tell you what? No, let me just let me just describe this opponent before we say what Rob did, and maybe we can discuss some of that. So this is what Rob says about the villain. Villain has been very active with lots of overbets, trying to pressure opponents when he perceives weakness. Bet sizes are not that thought out. He'll just grab a bunch of chips and throw them out. I have not seen him show down a hand yet.
So bully is kind of the player type that jumps out at me there.
Probably looser and aggressive, one of the typical lags kind of titles for this opponent. So with that in mind, that kind of player profile early in a tournament, second level of a tournament, we're very deep. We've got a good hand, not great hand, at the worst position in the table. What's your approach against this kind of player? Any thoughts about? We have a 3x open. Do we want to flat and invite the big blind along for a party? Do we want to 3-bet? Do we ever want to fold? Probably not, but maybe.
Before Joe jumps in, I just want to clarify for our audience. I know we're 100 big blinds as Rob. Are we the effective stack?
No. Well, yes, we're the effective stack.
Okay.
The opposing player
So
covers us.
they have us covered.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. And so folks in the YouTube chat, please, what would you do in the circumstance? Type your answers in while we chat about it here, and we'll get a little closer. Joe, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Well, as the worst, poker player in this particular group, even worse than Jim's note taker, I guess I'll go first. Ace Jack off doesn't play very well from any position, so I don't think that calling and bringing anybody in, you're just going to get dominated by a lot of different hands and really have a hard time playing out of position against all the different flops that you don't hit. So I think that my standard strategy would be to 3-bet this, not allow the big blind to get into the pot. You do run the risk that with Ace Jack, you're going to get called by the in position lag player, but you don't really mind that quite so much because he's going to have a fairly loose range and you're going to dominate that range with something as strong as Ace Jack. So if you were Old Man Coffee, I might actually be more likely to just fold this, although that's pretty tight. But just against the range that I'd be coming against, you just have to be a little bit ready to hold on a bit with Ace Jack if you end up with top pair, top kicker, or ace high boards, which is really what you're looking for. But also it's early in the tournament, and there's no sense you're probably not going to be able to pick up a bounty at this point. So being okay with playing it, seeing what you get, 3-bet, see what happens, and being okay with a fold at a later point, and saving your powder for a time when you have position is probably an okay approach as well.
It does, this is going to be so I'll just talk about a few of the factors that I'd be thinking about, because I think you can do a lot of different things with this hand, but this is going to be one of the few times that you're out of position versus this player at the table if they're in the hijack and you're in the small blind. So you are going to have a lot of opportunities to play in position against this loose aggressive player, which is generally a good thing. I like the way that Joe kind of summarized. If we call, we get to keep that wide aggressive player in the hand. We're just super dominating their late position open range with Ace Jack, but we do invite the big blind in, and like Joe says, we're playing out of position without range advantage when you're covered in particular isn't like a recipe for like a fun way to spend a few minutes, but that's definitely one. There's pros and cons to that, and there's pros and cons to 3-betting. You get folds a lot of the time, which is great. You get to just clean up. You get to claim 100% of that pot, even though you're only really entitled to half of it. You discourage the big blind player from coming along. Sometimes the button folds, like I say, which is great. Sometimes they call, and as Joe pointed out, we're going to have we're going to be dominating a lot of their range in that time. And sometimes they're going to 4-bet. And I don't mind using Ace Jack, hands like King Queen offsuit, as 3-bets against some of these players that are going to 4-bet straightforwardly. Because even though they're aggressive openers, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to 4-bet with a wide range. Usually 4-betting is pretty tight in a lot of the games that we're playing. So Ace Jack, King Queen, they're going to be behind a 4-betting range, and giving them the option to kind of like reveal the strength of their hand in that way, you might get away from this hand for cheaper by 3-bet folding it in a spot like this. And of course, good things happen when you do get called by weaker ranges. But now you're playing a bigger pot out of position against an aggressive player, and that has its own pros and cons. It's nice to have range advantage, but it's also nice not to have a big pot out of position. So those are the essentially the things I'd be thinking about. Chris, I don't know if you want to run through some of the comments in the YouTube chat. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah. It's great to hear everyone in the chats. I think so if there was some questions about is this suited or offsuit. So it's an offsuit Ace Jack here. And Mike Day says, because it's offsuit, I'd probably 3-bet to 9 or 10 big blinds. He says you want to see a flop with suited cards, et cetera, et cetera. I agree. Float the suited, 3-better super nit, fold the offsuit, and find a better spot. But folding is boring, so we pump it up, says Midwest 1811. Um, and, I think I agree. I think especially against the elusive player, you mentioned the old man coffee. That's the kind of player that I would actually be more tempted to uh, maybe fold, but probably flat ace jack offsuit against that kind of player. But against this player that has a very wide opening range, I like the 3-bet. I like the sizing people are suggesting around 10 big blinds. In fact, that's the exact sizing that Rob selects. He 3-bets to 3,000. And the big
I just
blind.
want to,
Oh, go ahead.
Chris, I just want to real quickly follow up on something Jim had said. It can be more clear. I just have a plan, right? Be planful about what you're going to do if you get flatted, if called by the in position player or 4-bet, so that you're not surprised by it, and that you can very easily feel comfortable just doing that and enacting it. Be okay with that, because it's a long tournament, and you're not going to win it in this particular hand.
Right.
And just to take off on that point, because just in case, because I know we have a lot of recreational listeners, when you are making that 3-bet, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're bluffing. Like you're raising, and against a lot of the hands that your opponent can have, you're value betting here. You want to get called by worse hands. When they do call you, it's largely going to be by worse hands. And it's unlikely that they're going to fold a better hand, but they're going to fold a hand with equity that you can then eliminate. And it's okay to 3-bet, to make this re-raise pre-flop, knowing that some of the times you're going to fold. It doesn't mean sometimes recreational players get stuck on this idea that, like, oh, well, I re-raised pre-flop, I 3-bet pre-flop, so I have like to represent strength with this. But it's important to like have a plan. You want to have some of the hands that you raise with that you're going to call with, some of the hands you're going to fold with, some of the hands that you're going to re-raise with. So like Joe says, just think about how does our opponent's actions intersect with the actions at the table, and what are we going to have? Yeah, Joe.
Sorry.
No.
So this is something that Andrew Brokus often talks about, which is the fact that we don't often think about what power that we're getting by getting the big blind to fold. Because if you think about the total pie that is the equity for the hand, by simply getting the out of position player to fold, even though you've invested more money into the pot, if that player, he or she, is folding away all the equity. So you split that essentially in however the hand comes out with the in position player if they call. So in terms of over time, if you're more willing to 3-bet in those situations, even though it's a tournament, even though you have some problems, you're making more money because you're forcing some of the equity of a particular hand to roll your way no matter what happens. So even if you have to fold, right? Let's say you run into aces or kings, right? And you get the big blind to fold, but you get 4-bet and you got to fold it away. Just remember that if you keep doing that, you're gaining more equity over time across tournaments, across cash games, because of the equity that the big blind folds.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's a great point. Because it is really important to think about our share of equity, and it's harder to realize equity out of position. It's even harder to realize it out of position against two opponents, and we're in the worst position at the table. So when we flat here and get called by the big blind, it's a really bad spot for us. It's a hard hand to play. So Rob does 3-bet to 3,000. The big blind does fold, yay, and our sort of loose, aggressive villain calls. And the flop comes. Remember, we have ace jack offsuit. And there's now about, I would say, 6,600 in the pot here. And we have something like 27K behind now. The flop is jack 4-3 rainbow. And this is where I think this hand gets kind of interesting for a conversation point. So we have 3-bet, been called, out of position. What's your response about in terms of, let me tell you what Rob does, what happens, and then let's talk about it. So this flop goes check check, and we can go kind of talk about the turn after we get to it. But what do you think of that? And what are you thinking both about our decision to check and what are you thinking when our opponent checks back?
So we're the three batter, so there is some intention to potentially c bet here, but I do think that a lot of times when we're out of position, we don't really, particularly against an aggressive player. Yeah, we have top pair, top kicker, but he could have all the sets. He could potentially have two pair. I mean, 3-4 is probably unusual. I don't know about Jack 4, Jack 3, but I think there is it's an easily beaten hand that we need to be pretty careful about before we start piling a lot of money. And since we've already three bet, having a check back range in this position allows us to see and have him identify some aspect of his hand range and give us some idea of moving forward. So being out of position in a single raise pot, and particularly three bet, I'm not opposed to checking here with the intention of calling any bet that the in position player makes.
In a vacuum, this is one of those boards that are hard to hit. Mm-hmm. Jack 4-3 rainbow. There's no flush draws. They've called a three bet, so they're going to have some suited connectors. So there's some straight draw potential there. As Joe says, there's also some sets for sure. But when we're facing a board that's hard to hit, that our opponent's range doesn't strongly intersect with, we're kind of incentivized to make a small bet with a large portion of our range. So I think the default position here would be to continue bet, 25%, 30%, something like that, something pretty small. It keeps our range uncapped. We can continue betting on future streets. But it's also something we get to do with all of our hands that hate this board, because like we say, this is a very difficult board to hit. So it's a kind of like a cheap bluff on a lot of those ones, and you can pick up a pot. My default position, I think, would be to c-bet here. The things that are interesting about it, when we do have a bully opponent who has us covered, particularly in a knockout tournament, there's an argument for sort of giving them some rope and letting them, because like we said, this is a hard board to hit, so it's hard to get called. Like your value bet's going to be hard to get called by a second best made hand. Some worse jacks, hands like pocket sevens, pocket eights, that kind of stuff. Maybe 6-7, with a backdoor flush draw or something can call there, but it's a pretty small part of the range. That's why it's an effective bluff spot, because it's hard for them to continue. So you might give a chance, and you might give them a chance to bluff into you with the parts of their range that don't hit this board. It's not a fun way to play poker, just sort of like holding on and calling down. But the other thing to consider is that our hand actually doesn't require a lot of like protection, if we want to use that word here. We've got top pair, top kicker. There's only 3 cards higher than jacks in the deck, and we've got one of them, which is an ace. So if an ace comes, that's great. If a jack comes, that's great. We don't want to see some of the lower straightening cards, I suppose, and we don't really want to see queens or kings. But as far as things go, this is a pretty safe spot to check. So that's the argument. Those are kind of like the two arguments for checking here. I don't know which is the right one. But I think, textbook says small c bet. Exploit says maybe we deviate from that here and let them bluff. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think I still like the small c bet here, particularly against an aggressive opponent. I think if they have a hand like Jack 10 suited or something, they're definitely calling, so we're getting some value. They might raise us. If they have a hand like King Queen that they call the 3-bet with, they're probably calling. Mm-hmm. They might raise us because they're aggressive. And I don't mind sort of like trying to sort of build this pot. And if they have a hand like King Queen, we're also protecting some of our equity by betting here. I think I would much rather, if I want to have some checkbacks, like a hand like Pocket Jacks is interesting. I think a hand like Pocket Aces is interesting. Maybe Pocket Kings are interesting as better potential checkbacks in this situation, or hands like Queen Jack or our own Jack 10 suited that we 3-bet with that, and now we have top pair, but it's not the best possible Jack. Since we have top, I think I prefer. I mean, I can see, and it's very opponent dependent, and we might be wanting to really, as described. This was what was his wording. Bet sizes are not that thought out. He'll just grab a bunch of chips and throw them out. Like, that is the kind of player I want to give a lot of rope. I want them to just kind of like grab a pile and throw them into the middle, especially when I feel like I'm really ahead here. So anything we can do to sort of foster that kind of behavior is good in my book. But I still think this is a really nice small bet situation, because we still might get them to pile chips in while we're ahead.
And that's the thing, like, against this opponent, we don't have to like only rope them in on this street. Like if we talked, I guess it was when's that episode coming out? Last week, or maybe a week from now. I don't know. We did a forums episode recently talking about this sort of position where, like, you're out of position. You don't want to wave the white flag by giving up because it invites these bluffs. This is where we should be kind of taking the other side of that coin. Now we want them to start feeling frisky. We've actually got a lot of equity in the hand. We have a lot of showdown value in the hand. And so this is the kind of spot that it's much easier to play out of position when you already have a made hand. Joe, did you have something there?
Yeah, so I guess, in looking at the pot size, right, we're going to have, by my math, 21 in the pot at this point. So it was 3-bet to 10. Do I have that right? Or 18, maybe 920?
It was 3-bet to 3,000. So there's about 6,600 in the pot. And
yeah, you're thinking about big blinds,
big
Joe.
Blinds, right. Big blinds.
Yeah.
So it's about 20 big blinds, right? So if you do a third pot bet, you're going to bring in another 7, and if he raises, that's going to, the call starts to put, stacks into play.
Mm-hmm.
Is top pair, top kicker in the second level of a bounty tournament with a guy that's pretty loose. Are you playing for stacks here, I guess, is my question. Because I mean, what's the plan? Because if you call a bet, you're I don't want to say you're committed, but you're pretty committed, right? Because there's a lot of cards, and what are you going to do with it? So
right. Yeah, I mean, sometimes these are the kinds of spots where it is opponent dependent. Top is not always like, let's get stacks in. But if we are seeing an opponent that villain has been very active with lots of overbets, trying to pressure opponents when he perceives weakness, bet sizes are not thought out, he'll just grab a bunch of chips and throw them out. Yeah, I'm probably willing to go to the mat with top against that type of player.
Because I think that in terms of thinking about the plan, you can play the small ball or you can play big ball, and you have to know which you feel comfortable with. And at this stage, again, recreational players, it's like second level. You want to go home, right? I mean, you want to buy back in. And it sounds funny, but it's true. Is you have to make a decision. Is okay. I got top pair, top kicker against a loose player. If I can pull his stack, I'm going to set myself up for a little while to play. But it does run the risk that he has pocket fours, right? Not pocket fives, but it's pocket fours. Right? That's a set on this board, and you're drawing pretty slim. Yeah,
it's very thin if we're up against a set here, which is possible, right? It's possible. Right?
Yeah. And he is entitled to have those very strong hands too. Like even if we're saying he's a very aggressive player, he's got a very wide range. The wide range. Even the widest ranges also include the strong hands. It's just that they're a much smaller part of the range when it's a wider range. Right. So, that is going to happen.
So let's talk. I mean, I think you could argue for a small bet or check sometimes. I think both of those are valid potential plays at this point. But when this player that we've just described, I've mentioned it multiple times in the description, they check behind. Before we get to what the turn is and what happens on the turn, what that is especially when we describe villain has been very active and tries to pressure opponents when he perceives weakness. When we've 3-bet and then checked and then they check behind, what's against the player who has tended to like attack weakness and now chooses not to? What is your thought about what's going on in this dynamic before we ever see a turn card?
So they've declined to add some fold equity into this equation in a spot where it appears that fold equity would have some weight. Like you said, we've shown weakness, we've declined to bet. So if we have a player who's typically just taking advantage of that all the time, you have to have a couple little red flags going off in the back of your mind when they choose to check back. Because for the same reason this was a good board for you to see bet, it's also a good board for them to float bet. It's hard for you to intersect with. Your 3-betting range is likely to have a ton of 2 overcards to this. And so you should have some folds, depending on the sizing that our opponent uses here. So when they choose not to do that, part of me, or I guess all of me, thinks that part of them is doing it to Joe's giving me the look here. Sometimes they're doing this with like pocket jacks or the set of 3s, the set of 4s. Like I could see checking back with pocket jacks here all day because you're blocking all the hands that you would want your opponent to have with top pair. And again, you're just not worried. There's no protection element required when you have a hand that strong. Probably true for all the sets here. So I do think I feel like their checking range might actually be stronger than their betting range.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have any thoughts, or anyone in the YouTube chat for that one?
No, and I think it depends on the player. I mean, typically, if it's, a recreational player is going to check back, it's going to be weakness, and you can just presume that with top, you have probably the best hand. But I think that again, for the same reasons, because it's a 3-bet pot and it was a call, there's not that much that if you end up putting any more money in this pot, you're getting close to, having a really difficult decision with a really strong hand against a player who you've identified as being a bully, right? And but I agree that it's kind of weird. You essentially, by checking in that position, you really want him to bet and to reveal some aspect of his hand so that you can just use it as a bluff catcher and call down and use the rope against him. But he kept the rope up, and so now you're stuck at the bottom of the cliff, and you got to figure out how you're going to get up there. So
yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think I like the analysis here. I think it can either be just a complete give up, or there could be some real strength involved in what our villain's doing here when they check back.
It's a polarized check range.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
it's a polar
it
check.
is.
It is. It's an interesting thing. It's a polar check. So the turn is a 10. It completes the rainbow. So now there's no flush draws available. Board is now Jack 10, 4, 3, complete rainbow. And Rob elects into this pot of about 6,600. He elects to bet 4,000. So around a 2/3 pot size bet. And villain calls.
I think I don't like the bet size personally. I think it's a big pot already. This guy is somewhat loose. If you are concerned about some strength that he has, if he's got nothing, a small bet would probably get rid of him anyway. If he's going to fold it out, I don't know that I'd go very small, but 2/3 seems a lot, and it really starts to bloat that pot up. And if the river is a blank, what do you do, right? So it's like thinking about where am I going to go next. I'm not certain where I am in that hand, and I'm not helping myself any. So I don't know that I would go. If you don't want to go too small, but you could almost go 1/3 to a 40% pot bet and accomplish the same thing here, given that it hasn't changed the board texture that much.
Jim?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Chris. I was just writing something down when it was a 10 on the
10.
turn.
Yeah. So it's Jack 10, 4, 3 rainbow.
So we should be, again, we a delayed c-bet here is super effective a lot of the time. It's great hand for our overcard range. It brings in a straight draw. It doesn't really change much about our opponent's, weaker range. Um, Now we're in this leveling situation where we've shown weakness, and then by declining to float bet us on the flop, they've shown weakness, and so we should be now betting with a lot of bluffs. So that's even more reason to be betting with our value hands. That's not really how it works, but that's kind of how it ends up. Um, uh, yeah, I'm with Joe about the sizing. I think we can size this down a little bit, which we can do and still kind of have the same effect. So that's just generally a good tournament strategy. Uh, but I think I'm betting here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it, yeah, I think yes. Sorry, I'm going through like, why would I not be betting here? I guess is the question. Is there any reason not to bet here? We do want we've already kind of shortened the game.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken a street off. I think with top pair, top kicker, it might not be a three streets of value hand when you're the better. I think it's probably three streets of value hand when you're the caller against a bluffy opponent, but it's definitely two streets of value as the better. So I think we can bet here and then bet again on the river under most runouts and expect to get called by a second worst hand. So that's what I would be inclined to do.
Yeah. And I'm gonna take a little bit of the opposite. I like sizing around this range here.
Hmm.
We've already lost that opportunity on the flop, and we still have a very strong hand, and I think we can still capture value from all the straight draws, all the 10x, the worst jack x. I think all of that we can count on potentially calling us even for this size of a bet. And it's harder to raise us when we bet to this sizing as well
Hmm.
without some kind of value in hand. Especially with only one card to come. Like if they've had king queen this whole time, and we didn't sort of try to push them off that on the flop, that's a hand you might be tempted to raise, but it gets harder. The deeper you go into a hand, it gets harder to raise with those kinds of holdings. So I think I like something like at least a half pot bet here.
So I guess so. Everybody should always listen to Chris.
Well,
Don't listen to me.
I don't know about that.
No, everything. Well, psychology, you can listen to me. Everything else, Chris.
All right.
That's how you should work for him. I guess the question would be: we've just gone through this discussion of the fact that he has the polarized range at this point, and we essentially have. I don't know if it's necessarily capped, but we've shown some weakness in that moment, and with what we may consider to be not a polarized range. My understanding of theory is always, well, you don't want to bet bigger, right? Because you don't want to polarize yourself, unless that's what we're doing. So I guess that would be my question to you, and help me.
Mm-hmm.
You know this better than I do.
I think it's more.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point. The way I think about sizing is sort of thinking about like if we think about if we sort of visualize the range, right? How much of the range are we likely to be ahead of and behind at this point? And I think there is like we've made the compelling case that there could be this sort of like check back range that is very strong. Well, the only thing that's really now sort of on this turn card, the only thing that's really like shifted at all. So, sets of jacks, sets of fours, sets of threes. Those are already dominating us. We were really behind those to begin with. The only thing that's really changed here is if they had a hand like Jack 10, right? And they thought they checked it back because they had like marginal value after a 3-bet pot, and now they've hit 2 pair. So that's a hand that's on my mind, but I'm not going to bet just because that hand might exist. I'm going to bet because I think there's a larger portion of this range that will pay me off on a bigger bet that I am better than, that I have a better, and that's the part that I'm targeting really. I want to see King Jack, Queen Jack, King Queen, all those sort of like hand, queen nine suited even. Like I want to target those hands and just see if I can. And I think they'll call off a bigger bet here. And so, and in fact, it makes it harder for them to figure out what to do there. So that's sort of the thinking behind that for me.
With the idea, again, just to go back to the flop plan or thought process, and again, people are more honest on the turn in general, but against the loose player that we're playing, again, if he you bet and he raises, are you calling that off?
I mean, against most players, I'm probably that's probably enough for me to be like, okay, I'm out of here. But against this player, I probably am hanging on. So
that's, I'm just thinking about how to plan out if I'm going to do particularly a bigger bet, because with a 2/3 size pot, a 2/3 pot bet, you're again moving right back into that.
Yeah, you are.
You're kind of committed. So.
You are. Okay. Well, the villain calls us, which I think is interesting, right? When we get called here, I think that does also continue to speak to, I mean, maybe sets still are just kind of like, let's kind of like keep yanking you along. But it's very likely there's a large portion of this range that we're ahead of that calls us here, because I think some of those hands are starting to be like Jack 10 feels like a good raise here for this.
They raise for sure. Jack 10 raises here for sure.
Right. I think we can start to remove some of those when they call us from their potential holdings.
Yeah.
And
honestly, and also just to that point, pocket, like the sets are also incentivized to raise here now, because it introduces the Broadway straight. Like there's definitely a lot of ways that this card is not great for a set holder.
Right. And they have to still also, the Broadway straight's there, but I think also if they're, I don't know, this is a pretty, low stakes tournament, and I don't know how much Rob or others are sort of like, Rob is probably aware of this, but I don't know if like some of the opponents are aware of this, but like, I think Rob's very capable of having a hand like ace 5 here in his 3-betting range, ace deuce in his 3-betting range, even a hand like ace 3 and ace 4 in his suited. And so those straights and sort of two pairs and whatever are available, or at least one pair and those straights are available as well. So anyway, regardless, the villain calls and the river is another 10. So the board is now Jack 10 10 4 3. No flushes available. And it's on us as our hero. We've already made this bet. And let's just, so there's about 15,000, about 14,600 in the pot. Rob has about 23,000 behind. So he's got like 1.5 pot or so behind. I'll just tell you what happens and then we can discuss. Rob checks and villain jams.
One of the hands that I had in my head was pocket 10s.
Right. Yeah, pocket. Sorry.
I mean, it just makes sense all the way along that that's a possibility. I mean, he made a boat if he's got Jack 10, right? He's got a boat if he's got any of the sets, and all we have is top pair, top kicker, right? Essentially, I mean, I know we have 2 pair on the board, but and he's shown strength. I'm tempted to say that I'd fold, and just try to find a better spot, because I think there are too many things that. What does he do this? He had queens all along. He had nines. Is he really doing this with nines? Is he really doing it with, I guess 8-9 would be the straight draws, or king queen.
Queen.
Yeah.
Queen 9 suited could be there.
Yeah. I guess there's
Ace queen
enough.
Could be there.
I guess there's enough bluffs that he could do it, but I just think it's. What do we have left? What, 60 big blinds? I mean, that's a lot of big blinds to. to base basically on just calling off at this point when we've been a little concerned that he has the polarized range. So that's
Chris,
me. But
Chris, do we know, did the turn 10 bring in a flush draw?
No, it was a complete rainbow.
Complete rainbow. Okay, so when he calls the turn, there's no flush draw on there. It's some straight draw, some one pair hands, and we've eliminated basically all the two pair hands, I think, at this point. A lot of the sets. So like pocket eights is right in there, I think, still. Jack Queen, Jack Nine, some of those one pair hands that we're ahead of. I think, listen, he has 10 here sometimes. Like if you had 10x in your hand, this is how you would like this. That's one of the ways you would. That's one of the hands you would play this way. You would call a 3-bet
You
pre-flop.
check the you call the
You would you check the flop behind. You'd turn a pair and call. Like so, it all makes sense. Totally makes sense for them to have a hand like 9-10 or 10-8 or Queen 10. That is all perfectly consistent. We cannot remove the tens from their range here. So the only question for us is what else can we put in that range that means that we can call this? Because we definitely we want to call. We've kind of said, I want to call. If this is me and Rob's spot, this is kind of what we wanted. We've faked weakness. We actually have a pretty strong hand. We've laid the trap for our opponent. It would be nice if it was a lot of other cards that they chose to shove on. But this is kind of what we wanted to happen. So, and we can't eliminate the strength from their range. So what else can we put in there? What else does it make sense for them to be doing this with? And I think it's really, and sorry, Chris, we bet the river and he
we checked the river, which I think is another interesting part.
Yeah, because that's another thing where you're like, come bluff.
Yeah.
Make that bluff shove.
Yeah, and it's one of those where you're like, come bluff shove. No, not that big.
Right. Yes. But it does really it does what we wanted. It puts a lot of other hands in his shove range here that would not be there if we had bet and he was raising over a bet. Joe, you had something, then I'll continue that thought.
No, I was just trying to think it through if it's a bet fold spot, and I'm not even necessarily sure if it is because it's still the same player type. Is there a benefit to just jamming ourselves at that moment? Probably not. So I think it's a really hard spot to kind of put out something that you're not going to be in this position. And I think that's really kind of what this hand all the way through, regardless of what it comes out, is like, you have to be prepared for what you're going to do, because otherwise you're going to agonize and not and randomly do something. It's kind of like, okay, I'm in this spot. I've decided where I'm going to go on this road, and this road may just take me off the cliff, but this is the road we're going to go down, regardless of what Google tells me I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to end up here, which again, it's like single pair hand, right? Top pair, top kicker against somebody that's calling off. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Chris, is there anything else that you want to tease out? If you're in the YouTube chat, just type in before we go. Just type in what you would do in this spot. So you check the river, and they overbet and jam
1.5 times the pot jam on this Jack 10-10 4-3 board.
For your tournament life, but not theirs.
Right. In a bounty tournament too.
Right, now let's just talk about that a little bit. We don't cover our opponent, so what's different about a bounty tournament? Like why? How should that influence our decision? How should that inform our conversation?
Yeah, I'm sort of much more familiar and much more used to playing some of the PKO style tournaments where bounties can actually become fairly meaningful. Like these sort of bounty style things I always just think it's just kind of like, it's like a little bonus for me. It's not something that really influences all that much how I play. It's like, oh cool, I go on a bounty, but it's not like, oh, I gotta change the way I'm playing because there's like half the first prize pool at stake here. You know, like I gotta figure out how I'm going after this. You know what I mean? So like I wouldn't put too much into thinking about the bounty here. I don't think this player is doing this because they're like, I'm going after this $50 bounty.
And I mean, I haven't read, I haven't really studied the Dara's book on bounties and tournaments and so on, but it seems like it's kind of early to be putting 100 big blinds into the hope of winning $50. I'm just not sure that the ICM model would say that that's a good payoff at this point, since you're jettisoning so much equity elsewhere to try to aim for that. Maybe I'm wrong, but that doesn't seem to make sense to me.
So I'll just read some of the responses here. Our own Rabman50 is in the chat, and he says I'd call. Mike Day says fold. Midwest 1811 says I'd take the $150 re-entry from my wallet, set it on the rail, and call, which is nice. In the actual original Discord post, we had a few more responses. Craig Savage said call based on opponent type and where we are in our range. DFS Brat says, yeah, I agree. Call is best. I posted in there and said I would call on this based on the read. They should have some 10x sometimes and GG when they do, but they're going to have so much air as part of their range that I think we're too high up in ours to sort of let this one go. But I'm not sure I'm right. I'm not sure, it sounds like there's kind of a mix between fold and call here. It's a big bet.
I think what makes it a call for me is that we got what we wanted. Like, we laid out this plan. It all went according to plan. Like, if we're not going to call here, we should be c-betting the flop. Like, we should just be playing a more conventional game. We intentionally deviated so that we could get our opponent to make the kind of mistakes that we can predict. They've taken the kind of action that's consistent with those mistakes. Is it in fact a mistake? Or are they just playing correctly and they've got the good part of their range and not the bad part of the range? Only one way to find out. But like, I'd be more inclined to bet fold than to check fold. I can say that much for sure. Because we have just shown so little strength, and we have a very strong hand, like you say, Chris, in our distribution. Like, this is pretty high up for how the hand has been played. Yeah, I just feel like it might not be the right call, but I feel like it's what we've been trying to achieve, and so we should call. I call. I
mean, otherwise it puts us into the place of having ace jack and we're set mining without a pair, right? Because we're not going to, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. Like, what it might leave us with only pocket jacks as the only. If we fold this, like, maybe we have aces. I don't know how Rob would play aces here. If he would check aces on this flop, maybe we also have aces. And we land here, so we might have aces, we might have
quad tens,
pocket jacks, we might have quad tens. Good point. We might have quad tens. So, but if that's the extent of our calling range, that's not enough against this kind of opponent, and that probably means a hand like ace jack needs to be in there.
I think one thing. So did you say this is like this third level, right?
Yeah, second level, I think.
Or second. So was this a player that Rob had played before, or it was just guy that looked loose?
I mean, he said. I think the thoughts are in that Villain has been very active, so he obviously has a bigger stack than Rob. So he's got more than starting. He's been very active with lots of over bets, trying to pressure opponents when he perceives weakness. So, at least through a level and a half or 2 levels, Rob has observed this about this opponent. It's not a ton to go on, but it's, at least some observations there.
I mean, if he's really been fairly active, then that widens his range a lot more. Then I think that it just pushes towards the call, but I would really be on that. You've only got what, 30 hands on him at most, because it's
Right.
third. Well, no, actually, it could be more than that. I suppose it could be a fair amount. Could have
But
been a
yeah,
lot.
you're not going to get
Yeah,
like a
right.
good sample size on
Right,
river over
yeah.
bets.
Right.
Right. And if you do, then you know, right?
Then you know. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, no, very true, very true.
Well,
I just want to take a second to shout out because I know we're wrapping up here, but some really cool folks in the YouTube chat this week, some new folks as well. Midwest 1811 making some great points. I think they've played at the Orleans before, based on based on some context clues I'm picking up here. But I'm really enjoying this feedback from our YouTube chat. Some really cool stuff in there so far.
well, we do have results. Should I tell us what the results are?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, so okay, wait. Do I have any guesses here before we actually tell any results? Because like what you really want is you just want him to wave over like the queen nine of something, and then Rob gets to do a little dance, being the badass that he is. He's like, gave him the breadcrumbs and they followed the trail and snapped him off, and there you go. But I do think it's just a set of jacks sometimes too.
I think he's got pocket fours.
Pocket fours.
Pocket fours. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Pocket fours. Your guess is what, Jim?
I'll go with. Well, I think they're actually bluffing, so I'm going to go with like queen nine. I'm going to say they had
okay. Pocket
queen
fours,
nine
queen
and
nine. I know, so I can't guess. If you're in the chat, give us a guess. What
You
you
got a couple guesses. Ace two suited or king jack,
King Jack.
are the two that jumped in. Yeah, loving this YouTube chat. All right,
Ace five, ace deuce, or ace five are some of the guesses. So
Yeah,
Rob does
sense.
end up calling, and villain turns over ace queen offsuit.
Yes,
Let's go.
Those two
Let's go.
overcards. That's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
right? Amazing. Way to sniff it out, Rob. That's
Nice
why
call,
Rob's
Rob.
the best.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
it's one that we have to be comfortable. I think I like this call. I like it a lot, and sometimes you're going to look like an idiot because they are going to
Yes.
have pocket fours or just ace 10 or something, and it's just like, yeah, nice, good game.
Yeah.
Here's my bounty. But yeah, I think this is a spot where I think we have to just defend our range sometimes, and we're just too strong. And especially, we have to remember that this goes back to what we've been talking about in the deep dive too. Is like player typing is only really useful if we, like Joe's been talking about, plan ahead and actually figure out a way to like dig down deep and act on it. Like, okay, we've got this understanding of how this player is sort of perceiving the world, approaching the game, and they're going to do these certain things that are maybe wild, or they're super tight and they're never going to do anything like that. And then those things should help, really help us make decisions. And then we have to like actually make those decisions in the moment when they come up.
Well, and so we talk a lot about leveling, and we talk about player typing, right? But people often forget to player type themselves. And what I mean by that is, as you get further and further into the hand, as you get closer and closer to that last chip phenomena, right? If I put this chip in, I'm done. With the tournament, you have to understand how you're going to respond in that moment when he shoves on the river and you have top pair, top kicker on a board that's paired, right? And where you think that he might have shown strength. And if you don't have a plan, it means that you better have a good understanding of how you're going to respond and how you want to respond. And it's just better to plan, know who you are, and know how you want to play it, so that you know who you want to take advantage of at the poker table. Because then you'll make calmer decisions and you'll make better plays, because you won't make them based upon an emotional response of, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, and so I'll just flip a coin. And coin flips are not what you want to be doing at any point if you can avoid it. You got to win some of them in a tournament, but you don't want
that's right.
Coin flipping with no idea of where you are.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Don't let coin flips be your upside.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, this is a really good conversation. Thanks to all our YouTube chatters. If you're a premium member and you're watching live, head over to the website calendar. We're about to go record another forums edition of the podcast with Mark Zhang. Mark's prepared a couple of spots that I think are going to be very illuminating to our members. Those will come out a little later in October in some forums editions of the podcast coming up in a few weeks. But we're going to go record that now. If you're not a premium member, thank you so much for coming in and enjoying the show with us live here on YouTube. Super fun. I want to thank Rob Washam for posting such a fantastic spot. Chris Jones for pulling it and leading our strategy conversation today. Joe Coolis for all his support and his amazing contributions as a Wrecking Crew member. So yeah, thanks to the YouTube chatters, thanks to the Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, thanks to our audience at home, and thanks to my mom and everyone else who's listening in. Have a great week and a great night, everybody. We'll see you again sometime soon on the RecPoker Podcast.